Well, Senate Democrats are following up on the president's State of the Union call to level the playing field when it comes to taxes. We'll be getting to that very, very shortly. But first, I want to start with this. This is the issue of endorsements. Mitt Romney, for instance, playing the Trump card yesterday. In that, he stood next to Donald Trump at one of his Las Vegas casinos to get the real estate mogul turned reality star's endorsement. Watch this. Okay, that was what happened yesterday. Joining us right now, Maggie Haberman, and Roll Call's David Drucker. Good day to you both. And Maggie, you and I were in set together, and we were watching that video. What was your sense when Trump calls and says, "I'd like to endorse you"? First of all, can you say no? And from what you saw in the video, did Romney really want that endorsement?
No, I think that for Mitt Romney, the only thing worse than not getting the endorsement was getting the endorsement based on that handshake. Look, I think that you can't say no. I think Donald Trump does speak to the grassroots of the party. You saw it last year at CPAC, where he delivered this very, rabble-rousing speech. He also has a very large media megaphone, and the last thing you want is Donald Trump going on TV and trashing you. I think they were concerned about him becoming a problem. That said, I think that Mitt Romney is not going to be touting this endorsement in mailers. I don't think he's going to be doing much with it.
It's the problem he could have been if he was not endorsing Mitt.
Correct.
Not what he necessarily brings him going forward. David, let me ask you this. Better endorsement, Trump for Romney or Herman Cain for Newt Gingrich?
Well, I think neither actually helps either candidate, but I think for Mitt Romney, this was all about suffocating the former speaker. I think when they looked at this, I agree with Maggie, it's not something they necessarily wanted and could have done without. But if it's a choice between having Donald Trump endorse Mitt Romney or endorse Newt Gingrich and giving the former speaker maybe a little bit of air so that he could do something to try and change the momentum, they were happy to take the endorsement because they got a "you're fired" headline out of it on Drudge for the speaker, and I think that they really want to put him away once and for all, because if he comes back again, it'll be like comeback number 4, and that's just what they don't want.
I mean, for Romney, just a second here, Maggie, will this hurt him later on, long term, if he does become the nominee and during the general, you can see the fired lines going together, the billionaire headlines there too.
Yeah, I think it's certainly something the Democrats are planning on making hay of. Newt Gingrich also is making a bit of hay of it, but I think the Democrats clearly have telegraphed they're going to put the "you're fired" guy along with the guy who says, "I like to fire people."
So, do these endorsements make any difference?
Some do, some don't. I think generally speaking, most endorsements don't do too much. I think when you're Mitt Romney and you're trying to make it seem like the establishment is coalescing around you, they do. Donald Trump is obviously not an establishment endorsement. He actually helps Mitt Romney with the other side of the party, which is the non-establishment section. But I think mostly, like I said, I think he's happy to have Donald Trump not endorsing Newt Gingrich. It cuts off free media oxygen that could have gone to Newt.
That's right. That news cycle, so important.
Absolutely.
Very, very important. David, we can't forget, though, the key endorsement in 2008, the Kennedys not picking the Clinton.
That was huge, but I think that 2008 was a different year, and of course that was in the Democratic primary. If you look at Republicans and conservatives this time around, especially coming out of 2010, the establishment is out. I've talked to some Republican lawmakers on Capitol Hill who joked that in terms of the candidate they preferred, if it would help them to go out and badmouth that candidate, they were happy to do that, but they didn't think their endorsement would do any good. And endorsements tend not to sway votes. What they tend to help with is fundraising and maybe a grassroots network that a lawmaker might be able to provide for the candidate of his choice. I think
how active they'll be on the ground, basically, as a surrogate, is what you're saying.
Yeah, no, and I think there are some candidates that might help, or they help in terms of keeping support away from your opponent. So when Nikki Haley endorsed Mitt Romney in December, it didn't turn out to help him in South Carolina, but she endorsed him, for instance, at a time when Speaker Gingrich was surging, and so it helped at least prevent the idea that Newt Gingrich was going to be the candidate of the conservatives. But when it came time for votes, it didn't help. Now, somebody that might help going forward, Senator Marco Rubio, because of the credibility he has in the Tea Party and among Republicans generally, that could help. But otherwise, it's hard to say that a particular endorsement is going to make a difference on the ground.
Quickly, one person, Rubio, would you agree as well, Maggie?
Rubio, I think would be a big deal.
Great. Maggie, thank you so much. David as well.
Anytime.